Virtual school committee meeting to order. Now what?
Now the same thing as always. We go through our agenda, right?
Yep. So we need to vote on the consent agenda. Did everyone have a chance to go ahead and read that?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a quick comment.
Oh, sure.
It's not even, major amendment or anything. It looks like the visitor participant's name is above that line. So if in the future somebody, goes and looks at the minutes, they may be confused. So if we can move him under the section, that would be great.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then that takes care of the warrant, right? Because it's part of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Mike, can we hear you now?
Is that a video of Mike? Okay. Yeah, he's.
Try putting the volume up on your actual computer.
No, but we can't hear him, so that means his audio is not working.
Okay. So I guess we'll move on to new business then. First item is the 6th grade transition school choice.
So if I might, that's just on here. Tonight's meeting was the work group meeting. So a lot of these agenda items are here just to give updates and to make sure that everyone understands they're still on the agenda. There are still things that we need to discuss, particularly with school choice, 6th grade transition, and actual classroom sizes. So that's still on the agenda, and we still need to continue to discuss that as it relates to school choice and the budget for FY21. I don't know if anybody had anything else on that.
What do you mean by the 6th grade transition? Going to 7th grade?
So what we've been talking about in terms of moving grade 6.
Okay.
I think, were we supposed to do visitors' comments? Because I forgot to do that. Do we go back or should we just wait?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. We're all trying this. Don't worry about it.
So go first. Comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I just want to put it out there that what an amazing job all the teachers and faculty in Granby have done getting on board within 2 days of the shutdown of schools and getting lessons up and running for the students in Granby. It's truly been amazing to see, especially when I hear from other districts, presidents, that they're stalling and they haven't even begun to provide anything for their students. The faculty in Granby has truly, truly stepped up, thought outside the box, and what they're giving the kids and how they're responding. I talked to another president and they have 25% in one district and 10% in another who are participating in what is offered them. The teachers I've spoken to in Granby have 75% or better of their students participating. That says a tremendous amount for Granby, the faculty, administration, and what we're providing. I just want to put that out there that the Granby educators deserve a huge pat on the back for what they've come up with. I'm off my soapbox now.
No, thank you, Robin. I think we all agree with that. Thank you all very much for that.
I think the way to do this, if I remember correctly, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. If someone has a statement for public comment, if you could just send a chat request, then we can unmute you and you can do your public comment.
I don't know how to do that. Can you hear me? I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah, so there is a chat on the bottom of the screen here. It's right off share screen. You press chat and you type in the chat box.
Tell her to move her mouse down towards the bottom of the screen.
Exactly.
I'm on an iPad. It says switch to active speaker, switch camera, participants, share content, stop video, mute. I don't have anything that says anything about chat.
Not even a little speech bubble?
Oh, hold on. I got a morning
Should
chat
be right there, yeah.
too.
You're right at the right spot.
Okay, I think I got it. Do you want me to write my name?
Your name's already there.
Yes.
Oh, so I don't have to write my name. Okay, got it. Sorry, I've never done this before.
We're all learning together, Kim. Okay, Kim.
Hi. You have to do my whole name and address, everything?
I think
Yes.
you do.
Okay. All right. So Kim Goldsmith, 239 Taylor Street, Granby. Hello, all of you. This is interesting. I also would like to thank the school quickly. It's been amazing. The teachers, we called my son's teacher yesterday. He had questions about his work. She was great talking through the problem. So as though this is a crazy time, our family and us are doing well with the schooling and everything, and the kids are doing great. So we appreciate everything everybody's doing. I just had a quick statement about these school choice numbers that were brought up at the last meeting. I talked to Mike a little bit well, I didn't talk to him, but Mike and I were going back and forth online a little bit today about the school choice numbers. And he was saying to me that it's not so much a school choice issue, but a class size issue. But when I'm looking at these numbers that we're adding 23 more children in East Meadow, I'm looking at, class numbers in 6th grade having 2 classrooms, being up in the 24 size. So I just feel like if we're going to add school choice children in 6th grade to put 24 kids in each classroom, then there shouldn't be an issue with that in the lower grades if we made, say, 3rd grade 2 classrooms or kindergarten 2 classrooms in order to make an issue, it not an issue where we could have 1 or 2 grades with just 2 classrooms instead of 3. I feel like if the administration continues to add all these school choice kids in, and we have 3 classrooms in every grade, at some point it's not going to need a vote to move 6th grade. 6th grade is just going to have to move out because there's unfortunately not going to be any room for them. So that's just my concern with seeing these numbers. I mean, I broke them down online for Mike exactly what would be in the classrooms with these numbers, but they're very high numbers in some of the grades, which is what I thought we were trying to avoid. And that's all I was concerned about after seeing those numbers at the last meeting.
Okay, next comment. Audrey? You can come on.
Audrey, you're on mute. Hold on one sec.
I can mute myself, yeah. I agree with Kim, piggybacking off of what she said of the class sizes obviously being an issue. But as I was bringing up as well, that when we're considering next year turning that group of 4th graders that'll be 5th graders into 2 classes, they are not our smallest cluster. And not that I want my daughter to have the 2 classrooms. Her group, the 3rd graders currently, is the smallest group when you look at all of them, other than the preschool group coming into kindergarten. And maybe that is something that needs to be looked at. Obviously, at this point, the vote has been made. 6th grade is not moving next year, but going forward, we need to have a plan. You know, the family spoke, this isn't really what they want. So what plan can we now come up with that can be our best option? And that's really it.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
You're on mute, Stephanie.
All right. I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Also, just piggybacking off of everyone. First of all, yes, our teachers are doing amazing and administrators are answering emails and questions for the kids. And I've heard many other districts that are not nearly as fortunate as we are during this whole experience for our e-learning. It's been great. So thank you to everybody. I guess my big thing is I'm just confused how a few weeks ago we were so full at East Meadow that we were going to move a whole grade level to the high school. I'm just confused how we could even think about adding more school choice students until we really solve the current capacity issue, which I don't believe has been solved yet. I was curious about that, if any more conversation was going to be happening regarding possibly preschool programming and models changing, or I know that it was briefly discussed that circuit breaker account I know has to be used for special ed, but is it possible to add or modify a classroom out of that fund? Because there appeared to be, I believe, over $400,000 in that account. So I was just curious if we were going to go back and talk about fixing our current capacity issue for resident kids and our current school choice kids before entertaining the thought of adding additional children into our schools. That was all, I guess. Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that all for comments then? Okay. School committee goals and goals template, Cheryl?
That's you guys. You're going to work on your school committee goals.
Okay.
Cheryl, is this supposed to be a discussion right now? Let me just back up a little bit. Are we done with the other items on the agenda? Since I have to go back and forth. Okay.
No,
so as far as Jen, as far as item A, the 6th grade transition and school choice, I guess what I'm understanding is that we're going to be continuing that conversation. Based on the comments that we just heard, it seems like we are kind of proceeding based on assumptions, because last time when we had the conversation around school choice, I think started talking about the budget, and I heard some comments about the potential reserves that we have. All that stuff will actually become a very critical part of our conversations in the next several meetings. And I would urge all of us to keep in mind that the times that we are going through are not ordinary times. So we have to be very mindful of our budget. I think all school districts are going through the same thing. So I am taking Cheryl as the reflection of that and us wanting to continue the conversation around that. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure that I understood that new business A. Okay, sorry, Jen. That's all I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I think what we need to what we need to understand as we move forward with that discussion is that 20% of the local operating budget is covered by school choice.
So with that 20%, is that 20% that we're already earning with current school choice, or do we need to get additional school choice to maintain?
Right. That's a great question. It is estimating the number of school choice to replace grade 12, which is the 11 students that will be graduating. So we at least need to recoup that. And then the additional, which just allows us the the ability to keep the local budget low.
Okay.
And the other thing you have to remember too is that the in-kind sheet, about a little over $300,000 gets paid out in school choice. So you can't eliminate school choice. There's still a $320,000 tab that has to get paid by the school department.
And that's because of kids' school choicing out.
Correct.
So what we really want to do is eliminate that number and have everyone stay.
Yeah, I've been saying that since I started. Yeah. Well said.
All right, let's see if we can figure that out.
Okay.
Excuse me. All right, so
then may I just ask for one more moment? Mike, can you hear us?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually in on my wife's phone. This is like my 4th machine I've tried. So
we promise we won't call you, Michelle. You can go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to kind of bring up here though is the, sorry, I'm just trying to find the best way to balance this little phone. But in seeing some of the things that came over from the committee to us with things that we're asking, I'm a little concerned about the 305, and I can talk about that here and now, or if we want to wait until that part of the discussion. I'm sorry, I've been a little distracted trying to get in. I'm not really sure where we're at, but I think all of this kind of ties together.
I'm open to talking about it now.
Yeah, so
I believe Mike's talking about
item
D.
Yeah, we're not there yet, Mike.
Okay, I'll wait.
You can have the meeting back.
No, let me just try to get back into the agenda now, so I can at least see that while you guys are talking. I'm listening, but at least I can hear and see and speak now.
Excellent. So, is there anything else about the 6th grade transition and school choice that we want to talk about?
Well, again, though, I think that's all kind of interlocked together, right? We never closed out the issue we have, right? That impacts future grades, which is dictated by school choice numbers in some way, which also, dictate some of our budget, right? I mean, is that not how it's all kind of linked together?
Yes.
I guess we can move on the topic or move off of this topic, but I strongly believe that we are not done with that topic.
Oh no, I didn't mean done. I meant move on for now.
Okay.
So that'll appear on the next business meeting agenda anyway, right, Cheryl? Because
yes. And I think as Mike and Emery are talking about, it's intertwined with the FY21 budget.
Absolutely, yeah.
We build the budget based on estimates of school choice, and that's all tied into the capacity and class size discussion at East Meadow.
Okay, and I guess my question on the school choice part is, these numbers that we're showing, are these based on actual applications, vetted interest that we have, or are these assumptions based on other data?
Yep. So they are openings that you vote at each grade level. That's a requirement of the law, that you have to vote to open the number of seats at each grade level. So before we're able to advertise, you have to vote the seats. I will say historically, seats at the youngest levels, K1 and 2, fill up very quickly. And the seats as students get older don't tend to fill up quite so quickly.
Yeah, I also wanted to jump in here and ask, this is something that somebody brought up on the internet earlier tonight. Reasons we like to get school choice at the elementary school is because a lot of times those kids stay through high school. Is that correct?
Correct.
So having a healthy elementary school that's flexible and allows for school choice also helps. It's one of the parts that helps to have a strong high school. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then another big piece of that is, you know, the funding, right? What we can afford to do for, you know, the school, as far as, you know, the school classes and, you know, the other things that happen within the school. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just again, I'm trying to make sure everybody who can hear this actually understands how everything is all kind of linked together in some way.
Cheryl, can I have a question? Cheryl?
Yes, Jim. Yep.
On the present list we have, March, you're looking at 54 openings, 23, 31. You know, we're not going to, even if we went with 54, we're not going to get 50. What have you built into the budget? What are you hoping for if we want to go 54? What would you? What's in the budget for next year? 20%.
Somebody's got some background noise. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hear a lot of background noise.
Can I just ask people, if you're not commenting, can you mute? Thank you. Awesome. So, Adam, what is the budget built on right now?
So right now I have the budget built on, I'm still getting some feedback, so if anybody can't hear me, just let me know. But I have the budget built that we're going to be at, what I say, full capacity for school choice.
That's current
so that would
school
be
choice, what we have right now.
Current school choice numbers. Current school choice numbers. Yep. And it would
so
be
basically minimally replacing the 11 graduating seniors.
Yes, correct. Replacing the 11 seniors that we would be losing this year. Correct.
Can I just clarify?
So anything above that would be additional money put in the school choice account.
Correct, but it's additional money, but it's just going to help offset the budget even more. I mean, it's not additional. It's just going to help us relieve some of the local fund or another funding source.
So those are considered part of operations. What we're using the school choice, that's in the operational budget.
That's offsetting. Yeah. So okay. That school choice number, give me a second, I can bring it up. It is essentially offsetting our operational general fund budget. That's what allows us to not request any additional money from the town on town meeting floor, is exhausting essentially that full revenue that we get from incoming students.
And if we don't have that, then we have to go back and ask.
Yeah, we either have to go back and ask, or we have to make cuts. We'd have to make cuts somewhere in programming or in staffing. So we would essentially have to go back to town meeting floor. But I mean, if we want to avoid cuts, then yes.
So just to clarify, you need 54 or 11 to avoid cuts.
Mike, I'm not sure we're not answering questions, are we?
No.
I don't know who that came from.
From James.
Oh.
I can send you that in an email later.
Okay.
It's not public comment right now, but I will send you that. If you send me an email in a bit, I will get it back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't mean that in a rude way. I just want to make sure that we if we can answer questions, I'd love to, but I just didn't want to not do something that we're not supposed to be doing, because I know it's not public comment anymore. So I apologize if that came off the wrong way.
Right, and It's actually a great thing for public hearing so that people could understand how we're using school choice to offset the local budget to the taxpayer. And those are the exact kind of questions that come out at public hearing.
Thank you.
Which I don't know how we can have public hearing. We're still working on that.
So, did we do the school committee goals? Are we gonna just move that to the side right now?
I thought the school committee goals, Mike, if you can put yourself on mute. Thank you. I thought last time when we discussed our school committee goals, we mentioned that we had a few remaining items that were going to bleed into next school year. And we were going to take those at the very least and continue our collaboration with the administration on making those strategic goals happen. Are we looking for additional goals? So let me just quickly say it this way. We don't have to create goals just to create goals unless they are really getting us to that next level, whatever that next level might be. We stick to our strategic goals, and whatever portion of it belongs to the school committee, and we just continue to work on those. Because even the subcommittees that we have, the finance subcommittee, the community relations subcommittee, they were a reflection, an extension of the goals that we had before. And I don't know that whatever those subcommittees started to do is even at a level of maturity for us to call those goals being accomplished. I think we have a lot of good work ahead of us on those. Again, I'm open to suggestions, but I just wanted to throw it out.
No, to be honest with you, I don't think at this point, the end of March, that setting new goals for us is actually feasible. I do agree that the subcommittee goals were nowhere near where I wanted or thought they could be. I think a lot more work, should be done in that area, even beginning, next year. Now that we've got them defined, a little bit better, and we have a different, model for this meeting in particular. I'm fine with just keeping things the way they are, because realistically, we only have like three meetings left, I think, right?
I don't know how many meetings were left, but the school committee goals don't necessarily have. My understanding and my perspective is that they don't really have to end with the election cycle, or with the school committee cycle. School year cycle. We continue to work on whatever our goals are. So establishing and clarifying and making sure that we all understand those goals is important always. But what I'm saying is that I think we already, just like you were saying, I think we do have a good set of goals that we are still working on. And for what it's worth, I think that will be sufficient for now. We don't really have to strain ourselves to come up with new goals or different goals.
Yeah. Okay. I'm fine.
I guess my question is, who's going to put it in the template for you? Is that something you want me to do?
Well, yep. So why don't I give that a shot and see how it works out?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, the Dean of Students.
Yep, so I have in your folder, this is a FY21 budget item, but you had requested more information regarding the Dean of Students. And so Mr. Latoy was able to add to that part of the discussion. So he sent you this update. And I apologize, I didn't get to him on time to get it into your folder for the weekend. So if you want to take a minute and read that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We don't necessarily need a vote or anything on this. This is just trying to, I guess, trying to understand that what we did made sense, correct?
right. I think Mr. Petrus brought up that it was a 1-year position, and that it would be reassessed going into FY21. And so this is sort of what the work has been this year and what we hope the work can be with the Dean of Students. And it is, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, currently it's in the budget.
Yes, yep, it's in the budget.
So this also means that we have to hire a full-time 5th grade teacher instead of the long-term sub, right? And is that in the budget?
Yep, that's also in the budget,
yes.
As well.
Yes and yes.
But again, just to be clear, we're not hiring 2 positions. One's already filled. We're only hiring 1 position.
Correct. So
correct.
Again, yeah. So it's just moving the expense from the permanent sub line into an actual full-time teacher line. So the expense is the same. It's just transferring it from one line to another.
So the salary is the same as a full-time teacher position?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? Because there was some background when you had started that.
Sure, sorry.
That's okay.
For the salary that is being paid for a full-time sub, that's the same as a full-time regular 5th grade teacher?
Well, so there is some additional, and I can look it up right now. There would be an additional amount depending on who that teacher is, but let me just check it.
And we have to go through the process. I don't know if it's me, but we would have to go through the whole process again of posting and applying and everything, right? And when is the long-term sub position up? Is it at the end of the school year and that's when it starts, or how does that part work?
Yes, you're exactly correct, Jen. So the posting would start as soon as the budget is passed. We would start. Well, let me back up the train a little bit. We can post with an anticipated opening, and when the budget passes, then we can hire, and we do that often. We typically put in the budget mid-range salary, but you never know what kind of teachers are going to apply, what the market is. So we do try to hire the best that we can. So often that can be above what's in the budget or below what's in the budget. Depends on the people that apply.
And then the bottom line for the whole money thing is the money difference for next year isn't going to be great, right? Because we've already been paying a long-term sub,
yes.
and we've already have the Dean of Students.
Correct. Yep. So the difference between that full-time position that we put in, like Cheryl said, it's I want to say it's a middle of the step bachelors. I'm going to try to look at it right now, but yeah, the difference between that and the long-term sub is not much.
My question would be, and I'm sure the position is done well, and I'm sure Scott has done it well, is there a need to expand that position so it's more than just the 180 days?
So that's a good question. When we hired the position, it was hired as a Unit A. So if we did make that decision, it would not be a Unit A position anymore, and it would be an administrative position. So
that was my concern, that is, and I don't, not the person doing it, but
no,
administrative jobs are never done. You can't leave at 2:45 and come in at 8 o'clock. So that's my reason. Is there a reason, and I'm looking at the other end, to expand that so that more can be expected than what I've just read about here? And I can't answer that now, but I'd put that on the table, that's all.
Jim,
sure. I think one of the things that would be helpful is to have additional support for evaluation. There's a tremendous amount of staff now at East Meadow, and the evaluation basically all falls on Bill for the instructional staff in terms of classroom teacher, and Carol, does do evaluation of some of the special education staff, but that would be a tremendous value to East Meadow. I think originally we were, you know, a little cautious of adding administration, given the tone and tenor in the community.
Right.
And also a little bit concerned about budget impact. So we were a little conservative in how we approached it.
Okay.
So, so I will reflect on the conversation last year, because we asked the same question, and we were very comfortable in making the decision that the dean position was going to meet the needs that were expressed to the school committee at the time. It was not a budget concern, because we said, don't worry about the budget, just tell us whether or not there's a need. It was not any other concern. There were two items that were shared with the school committee at the time. One was that there wasn't really a major need, unless that changed, for anyone to be there beyond what the job description of the dean is currently showing. And also there was someone to be there during summer time, because, you know, when school's not in session, the dean, I don't believe it has to be there, but vice principal would be expected to be there. Is that correct, as part of the administrative team? So
yes,
I think we had a good conversation, helped us understand what the need was, and able to make the decision. It wasn't necessarily a postponed decision on vice principal position. Is that correct, Cheryl?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I
mean, it brings up. Sorry, Jim.
Here's an opportunity, because if I saw looking quick, if you're dealing with parents or attendance issues and so on, sometimes there's a lot of meetings that would have to occur with parents after hours kind of thing. And rather than, so I'm just wondering, after 1 year of it, what we would want to do with it, if anything else. But
yeah, I mean, I think I would have to go back and ask Bill. Okay. I think one of the things that we could consider is what we do with some of our guidance staff and our social workers, which is they have an additional stipend for some 10, I think it's 5 or 10 days where they come in and do additional work, and they're still Unit A. I don't want to speak on behalf of Bill, but I don't think he would say no to additional time, for sure.
More help the better.
Or, yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just wanted to weigh in, you know, one more time on what Emery was saying. I do remember that this was a very healthy discussion. We went back and forth a couple of times on what exactly the role was and what we would expect from it. So, you know, again, I don't think this was anything that we just tried to, make smaller. We did have a healthy discussion on it. Was there any more that we wanted to talk about on this?
Well, just one. Remember last year it was mentioned, it came up right away about the help with the discipline issues, and we all sort of rolled our eyes like, discipline issue. So has the discipline improved in 1 year over there with the additional help? General discipline, because that's what we heard.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So when we talk about general discipline, if you notice in the memo, what we're talking about are tier 1 interventions. So being able to do the grade level character assemblies, being able to do the peace builder assemblies. I do think you see a change in culture in terms of all of the students. I think that Bill, and I don't want to speak for him, I think Bill would say we still have some tier 2 and tier 3 students that, you know, are rising up and taking a tremendous amount of time from the social workers. And that's something that I think we would be addressing moving forward as a need. Right now, I think, as you said, you know, Mr. Taylor does an amazing job. And I do think that discipline is certainly, what's the word I'm looking for? Immediate is the word. So if a teacher is having a struggle with a student, Mr. Taylor is available to immediately go down, sit in the classroom, work with the student so that the student isn't losing instructional time. I think really that's the difference we're seeing in terms of discipline for all of our students.
Right. Well, I think that's a key thing. It's not only immediate, but you don't have to address it tomorrow when that thing happened today. Tomorrow is just too far. So
Correct.
be able to get to that, because I know it was one thing that Bill said he wasn't able to get to with everything else he had to do. So makes sense. Thank you again.
And I don't want to speak on behalf of the teachers either, but what I hear is that they do feel more supported when students are having discipline issues. That again, the immediacy of having someone be available and work with, students on the smaller types of discipline issues helps them feel supported in their classrooms. And that's been a significant impact for the teachers in East Meadow.
Yeah, that's a real positive thing.
Yep.
Okay, so do we need to come back with this, or are we done with the Dean of Students? Like, I thought you had a takeaway, Cheryl. I don't know if this should.
Well, it's in the budget, so my guess would be that if you pass the budget, you pass the position, unless there's a discussion next time with the budget that it's a position that would come out of the budget.
That's a good way to look at it.
Okay, and then, well, I was just going to say, any further responsibility you want to think about or talk about would actually be for not next year, but the following year. Is that correct?
Jen?
Okay, so this is me being naive, but when we say if we pass the budget, we're voting on the position, but I guess to me, I just need clarification around that. Does that mean the Dean of Students staying exactly as it is and a full-time grade position at the middle of the road? That's how it's built into the budget?
Correct.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so then the next item is what we've been getting for asks from the Finance Committee. A lot of it has been, I believe, the normal stuff. I spoke with Emery yesterday for a bit, and he said a lot of it is what they typically ask. I just am a little bit concerned about a couple of requests. One being they wanted a report by bell block for East Meadow School, similar to what was created for the Energy Commission for the high school. I'm not really sure where they're getting at with that information, but at the same time, what's in each hour of the day is already out there in the public already, so I don't have an issue with sharing it. I just wanted people aware of it, on the committee. And the other item was they wanted us to put together a budget that did not include the 305. I believe Adam put that together already with Cheryl. I just did not want to share it until they were able to tell the whole committee what would need to happen in order for that to be, something we could do. So Adam, I don't know if you want to share that information now.
I certainly can. I'm not sure, Cheryl, if you want me to share that right now and get into detail, or give some high.
Yeah, my question more is, how serious do we want to take that request? From my perspective, we met the parameter of the select board and town administrator, which was the formula we've been given now for 4 years with net school spending and the 305. To have that kind of reduction made so late in the budget cycle is problematic at best, and really, I think, sets the budget down a course that we've been trying to mitigate since I started. 4 years ago, we were in this crisis mode. And if you remember, we had students marching out on 202. We were laying off staff, and we were on town meeting floor. This budget that we're presenting, even though we've had, a significant increase on the in-kind side, allows for us to continue moving forward in really positive, meaningful ways for students. I I am a little surprised that they are asking for us to reduce the 305. And I think I would ask for some clarity around why in late March during this budget process, now we're getting asked to reduce. And again, my question would be, is the town in a fiscal crisis? Is there something that they are looking at that we can be a part of the discussion? So I guess I would like some guidance. How far down this road of reduction do we want to go?
So I think for all the reasons that you just mentioned, Cheryl, I would think that providing the information that will help all of us to have a good conversation is the best way to do it. I think that's been our approach the last several years. Even though to me it makes sense, the classroom sizes and this and that level of detail, I really cannot come up with what the budget planning around those numbers would be. I would be curious to find out from them what they are thinking, why some of those figures play into their thinking. And for that, I think we can do what we've been doing the last several years. Just, we provide whatever information is available. And I understand that you already prepared that, Adam. And based on that, we can have a conversation and ask these same questions of those folks who requested the information. What are some of the scenarios that they're looking at? Why? And how can we really, make sure that the needs of the school district are understood as we are putting the budget together?
I have a question about the 305. Didn't we as a town vote that to appropriate that to the schools? Can they just automatically pull that? Doesn't have to go back to another.
No, they can pull it. It's only viable for 1 year after that vote, and then at that point in time, they can use that money for anything they choose to.
But my comment would be just to agree with what Cheryl said, that there's, at this point in the game here, there's no reason to look at trying to take that away now. They want to take that away in September. Tell the committee in September it's going to go away, not now. It's way too late in the year to do that now. And it's a fruitless effort to make it. It would devastate the school system. What did they think? How can we take away 305 out of the system right now? Can't be done.
But we've also been, we've been using this 305 for several years. It's not like, the 1 year rule kind of doesn't apply. It's not like we have it's what they told us, how they told us to do it. At one of the joint FinCom meetings, that's what they wanted us. Right?
Let it be.
So I didn't want to share the information with them, with the cuts that would be required, because I just thought the word would get out the wrong way, and that's why I wanted to share it with the committee first. But what you're saying is we don't even really want to present that here until we understand more information. Is that correct?
Correct.
Here's what I feel. I feel that if the town doesn't want to support, I remember what it was like with my child going to school and they kept doing cuts. And if we keep doing cuts again, we're going to have people leave again. It affects the students when we start cutting the staff that is required for effective learning. And I think 305 is not a lot of money to ask.
I think we're all on the same page, and I think we've been as far back as I can remember. I think there was a good reason why that amount was originally added to the budget, and I think especially in this cycle that we're going through, timing or other constraints that were put on our budget, I think it still makes sense to have it there, and we know that, and we agree on that. But I guess what I'm saying is that, and I'm hearing it from others also, it makes sense for us to really have this conversation with those who are asking the information and understand what are some of the scenarios that make them ask for this. Otherwise, especially the timing is a little troubling. I agree that this is really very close to the point where we would normally approve the budget, and really, getting into these scenarios where, an amount that was assumed to be part of the budget is taken away or could be taken away is problematic. However, it should not stop us from having that conversation. The challenge is we're having this conversation in front of our computers. I don't know what that conversation with the finance committee or would look like. How can it be scheduled and how can it be held? If there's a way to have a meeting like this sooner than later, I would really like to have that one-on-one dialogue with them, as opposed to really speculating on some motives and what they are looking for.
So I guess my question would be, would you like me and Adam to have that reduction for you at the next school committee meeting and simultaneously try and plan for a joint remote meeting?
I mean, one person vote, I would say yes. And honestly, just reiterating that we are all on the same page as far as our budget and that 305 amount. It's really no secret, because we had similar conversations in the past. Some of you just remember a few of those instances. We know that removing 305 really relates to a lot of critical items for the school district. So I know that it is always traumatic to really get back to those conversations that we were having a few years ago. But if someone wants to really hear it, that it's going to be traumatic for the school district, we can again just share that same information. But I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, when we are about to vote for that budget, no one says that we requested some information and we never received that information, or we never had a chance to talk about that information. That was something that we worked hard to avoid the last so many years. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed. Yep.
So Cheryl, I think the answer to that is yes. If you can have it ready, I'll reach out to John too and see if I can get him to agree to some sort of a virtual meeting, so we can get this discussed. I don't want to leave anything that they've asked for unanswered, but how we answer it, we can figure out the best way, right?
Yes. Okay.
So that is, I believe, the end of the new business. Did we want to break into subcommittees, or do we just want to call it a night at this point? I think the next plan to meet next week.
I would like to read an update, if that's okay, and then I don't know if the committee wants to figure out a way to do virtual subgroup meetings. I mean, budget is pretty intense, so I don't know if we want to try and pick it up in May.
Yeah. Okay. So let's skip the subcommittee pieces for now for the next.
Ask a question, maybe make a suggestion as well. So if this is what we're going to be doing, at least for a while, and it seems like whatever we call it, the quarantine, the physical distancing is going to be with us for a while longer. Is there a way for us to really decide on an agenda that will include one of those two subcommittees items, and maybe have it all together? The main purpose was really for us not to have everybody work on the same thing and leverage the numbers and move to our own corners and come up with ideas that we could suggest to the committee after. But if this is our circumstance right now, one thought that I have is maybe to say, hey, you know what, budget is coming up. Let's all look and talk about the budget. If we want to talk about something that is related to community relations, we can do that, because I don't know how successful it's going to be really for us to break into virtual meetings at this time. Maybe we need to plan more if that's what we're thinking about doing. We need to plan more around these virtual meeting platforms to be able to do those breakout sessions online.
Yeah, I think so if I hear you right, and I think this makes sense, let's keep the budget topics on the agenda, especially as it relates to next school year and probably the wrap up of this school year. And we'll just kind of keep the community subcommittee or outreach subcommittee off to the side unless something pops up. But I kind of see this being the norm for at least the next 2 or 3 scheduled meetings.
And I have one more question based on what Cheryl just mentioned. Do we know whether or not the budget timeline changed officially? Did anything move?
So I reached out to Chris last week in regards to public hearing, because that's something that we need to do by law, and they're still I guess discussing adjusting town meeting dates at the state level, which would then change our public hearing. But as of the end of last week, there was no changes to annual town meeting. So like Mike and I had discussed last week a couple times on a phone call, we're going to plan as if we have to present our budget to them during their second meeting in April. I'm going to assume that town meeting will get pushed back, but as of right now, I haven't heard otherwise.
Thank you.
Emre and others, I got an email from Kathy Kelly Reagan this afternoon about something else, but she put in there that the selectmen's supposed to be next week, maybe voting on postponing town meeting until Monday, June 8th. If that happens, that would give us a lot more time to get ready for things.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Jim.
If that's correct or not, the selectmen's supposed to vote on it next week or something.
Okay. Yep, and they're postponing elections as well.
Which, right. Oh, town elections?
In June or something, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everything pushed back.
So with the elections being postponed, does that impact term dates, or will we be just without members?
As far as I know, terms are until the day of the election. That day, whoever just comes on becomes a member of the committee board, whichever one folks are running for, and then they officially become part of it. Pardon me?
My card says my commission expires on like May 21st, 2021. So
I think they would have to adjust all that. That's a great question. I think they would need to adjust all that, because without the elections, we would not have members, and that would go against the spirit of having full committees.
We would lose 2 members. We'd lose Jim and Mike, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So just an FYI, I emailed Chris a week ago today asking about town meeting, and he said it was under discussion and not yet decided on. So that's the last communication I had with him regarding that.
Right. Okay.
But aren't we under federal restrictions anyway?
And if I can jump in. Yeah, so there's been a lot of legislative discussion about timelines. Again, a lot of this is legislature, a lot of this is Mass General Law. So if changes are made, they need to go through the legislature. I think the governor's doing what he can in terms of emergency declarations, but if it's a law, like relative to DESE and MCAS, there's some federal oversight and legislation that has to change that then the state can respond to. So I did receive an email from Chris, I think after yours, Adam. And to Jim's point, they are looking at the 2 dates in June and asked if the schools would be available. And they certainly are available. We'll make it work for them. So there is discussion. As I said very early, my concern is public hearing. Not quite sure if we're going to get relief on how to have a public hearing in this state where we can't get together in larger than groups of 10. Although there's been some discussion that it doesn't apply to public hearings, and I've heard some scenarios where towns are having people stand in the parking lot where each car is and keep them apart, by not being in the adjacent parking space. So I think towns are going to get creative. But I'm hoping for a little bit of more creativity from the state on how we can have public hearing to move forward.
And just to jump on that too, so by chance that we don't have public hearing or town meeting is pushed back till whenever, the law as it states right now is once we start the next fiscal year, the state would appropriate 1/12 of the prior year's budget to the town/school department for them to operate on until a budget is approved for the current fiscal year. So July, they would give us 1/12, and then August, they'd give us another 1/12, and they would do that until the current fiscal year budget is approved.
Okay. So what we have left for budget is really just the hearing, our vote, and then a few things we have to get out to FinCom. Is that correct?
Yeah, our budget, I mean, right now we have two budgets. The one is what was presented to school committee, to the select board, that's been made, I guess, public on our website. And then there's the one that reduces it by 305. So once we have some questions answered and we know which way we need to go, I mean, we have a budget ready. So
I'm just trying to figure out and assess how quickly we can move. It's really just the town hearing, I mean, the public hearing then that's really going to slow us down.
Right, and that's got to be, I believe that's got to be a 2-week lead time for public hearing. So yes, to answer your question, we are, as soon as we know from finance committee and or select board which way they want us to go, we're ready to go, and we can post public hearing as soon as possible.
Okay.
So the one that's already done. That's got to be postponed, canceled.
What's that, Jim? Sorry.
You've already put the ad in for next Tuesday, April 7th, right?
No, I don't believe we posted that yet.
I've seen it in the paper.
Okay. So yes. Okay. So that's a good point. Thank you. I was not aware. So we will get on it. Yes. So that one obviously is, we'll postpone it. We won't cancel it. We'll postpone it until a later date. Yep.
I don't think anybody would show up anyway.
No.
So Jen, since I speculated once, let me just speculate the second time. You remember that sometimes when we have vacancies on the committee, new members get appointed. Maybe there's a provision that allows the select board to reappoint the existing members or whoever until the election. But I would think that the conversation that we're having in the context of the election date and town meeting dates should also apply to, what that means for the committees, because I can't imagine that our committee is the only committee that's going to be missing some members, and it's not really the spirit of the law.
All right, so did we want to move on now to the update from Cheryl?
Okay. So I just wanted to sort of give you an overview of what's been going on in the district since the COVID-19 outbreak. So with the COVID-19 outbreak, the leadership team has spent the last few weeks organizing for distance learning. We continue to set expectations for ourselves and our learning community to engage in learning activities that help students stay connected to their teachers, understand that they are safe and their teachers are safe, and that we are working very hard to make sure everyone stays safe and healthy. That was our initial message and expectation to all teachers, that first and foremost, we needed our students to know that they were cared about, and that the principals and leadership team needed to share that message with their staff, that they were cared about, and that their safety and health were really the first and foremost in our minds as we looked at the 2-week closing. So with that, I want to say thank you to our teachers. With less than a week's notice, they adapted traditional lessons for the online setting. They adapted their presence in the classroom to students knowing and feeling their presence in the online setting. They have planned and executed new ways of teaching and learning so that all students stay in a learning mindset. So in addition to focusing our expectations on the social and emotional learning sides of our students, really our expectation for everyone was to stay in a learning mindset. And so in the beginning, we really talked about how can we structure classroom days where students were going to be home in ways that were meaningful, not overwhelming, and that really were exploratory in nature. And that our real goal was to have students understand that they can be learning at any time of any day. And that was also extended to our expectation of staff. And so we shared that we expected staff to be available and communicate their availability twice a day to families, and that's gone really well. We have a lot of examples, I think, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on JR. Kim spoke to, the teachers are available for phone calls and emails at least twice a day. One of the things that I encouraged as an expectation was that teachers make personalized communications with their students. So instead of just sending the all class, how is everyone, really making sure that every student was somehow getting an individual email or a phone call so that they knew that their teacher was connected to them individually. And that has really been beneficial, I think, to some of our students who really are anxious about not seeing their teacher, not seeing their friends, and not being in school. So we are currently working with union members to address expectations for video instruction, length of class and assignments, grading, credit for credit-bearing coursework, and other logistical items as the closure has been extended to May 4th. I want to thank the union for their patience, as well as their leadership and the leadership team, as we've been trying to work together to identify the safest and most efficient ways for staff to provide instruction in the online environment. So that's been a shift from DESE. The recommendation now is to allow for instruction to continue. I do want to say kudos to Granby teachers. After about the third day, we were starting to get emails from them saying, hey, can I use Google Meet? Can I use Zoom? Can I use some other screen time types of activities in ways to engage with my students through video? And so we sort of had to say, you know what, as the leadership team, what can we do safely? What meets our criteria for federal guidance for having students on the internet safely? And then finally, what can we support basically with two people between David and Stacy? What's going to make the most sense for us? So teachers have been really patient as we've moved into actual instruction online. So thank you for that. We are working on an MOA with the union, and that should be in front of school committee next week as well. Let's see. I want to say thank you to the paraprofessionals. They are spending countless hours working with staff, their teachers, to ensure that they continue to support students in the online environment. I've heard stories of paraprofessionals emailing their students, making accommodations on assignments, calling students and really helping them through some of the challenges that they would encounter in the classroom. They just happen to be home. In addition, our paraprofessionals also volunteered time to work in the Granby to Go program. They packed food backpacks and even delivered them at the beginning. And while Granby to Go is not open during school closure, I am sure that our staff will be eager to help when Granby to Go returns. It's a long list, so I'm sorry, but I'm sorry I'm not sorry, because the staff has been just amazing. I wanted to say thank you to our custodians and facilities crew who worked tirelessly in the very beginning to ensure our buildings were clean and sanitized top to bottom. Their work right now is instrumental in our ability to return to school as soon as we are able, and as soon as we get notified by the governor that we can open school again. And you should absolutely know the work of David and Stacy in the IT department. What we had planned to be a 6-week implementation and rollout of our content filter migration and one-to-one Google Chromebook environment, Stacy and David did in 5 days. And so what that means is they had to investigate the best content filter, which would allow our Google Chromebooks to go home back and forth and be federally compliant. So in addition to doing all of that investigation, David had to purchase that content, then implement that content filter on our network, and simultaneously, Stacy was working on updating all of the Chromebooks, both the touchscreen Chromebooks and the standard Chromebooks, so that students could pick them up and take them home as needed. And I just can't say enough, this was a 6-week project that we intended to do over the summer that they did in 5 days. And it was just amazing work, and I can't say thank you to them enough. They've kept, I think now we have over 80 Chromebooks out in the community helping our students stay online during this time. And then finally, thank you to the DLT. It's been a difficult few weeks for me personally, sorry. And the team truly stepped up to fill in. Our daily Google Meet virtual meetings continued. Important decisions were made. They've kept their sense of humor and ensured that our staff and students know how much they are valued and how much we care. I think my favorite meeting of the time of this entire time was when Stevens Piper poked her head up over her dad's shoulder and just smiled, AKA Jimmy Fallon, as much of our kids are doing here tonight. I can't tell you how much that means to all of us as educators, because those kids are why we're here and do the work that we do. So if you ever feel like they're not being appropriate, let them be inappropriate. This is unprecedented time, and certainly they make us smile when they just do their kid things. So none of this has been easy, but during all of it, we have kept the needs of our students and families in the forefront of our decisions. At no time have I been more proud of the Granby Public Schools. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheryl, sometimes when we are successful, it kind of causes us to overlook those successes. And some of us who have been going through these adjustments, seeing very large companies actually struggle. Companies with huge IT departments struggle with the transition. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done, from administration to our custodians, as you mentioned. All the work that's been done, all the adjustment that's been done. I know that it's not easy. And for a small district like ours that has just started its digital journey just 1 year ago, being able to transition to this digital environment to make sure that students are getting what they need, I think it's fantastic, and we should recognize and celebrate that in the days, weeks to come, because it is really a tremendous accomplishment. So thank you very much to all of you.
And I did leave out, and I apologize, I left out the parents because they are home with those kiddos, trying to make sure that they're doing what we're asking them to do. So they've been really good about letting us know, as they did with Blizzard bags, when the assignments were becoming problematic, maybe too long, not clear. So please keep that feedback coming to the teachers. It's really important. Our goal here, as I said, is to make sure that kids feel safe, that they know their teachers care about them, but that they're in the learning mindset. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. It can happen when you draw a canoe in your driveway and you fish on that canoe, and there's a catapult that's your brother built at the other end of the driveway. So all of that is just really, I think, how we need to move forward, particularly through May. And hopefully when the sun comes out, we will get outside more for even more of that.
So I just wanted to jump in, and I wasn't on where people could hear me earlier. I did want to say thank you. To be honest with you, watching Isaac in the morning, excited to log into school and see what's going to happen that day is just great to watch. So he's interacting with his teachers, he's interacting with his friends. It's just a great thing, and the speed at which it was put together was just absolutely phenomenal. So I want to say thank you to all, also. I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything. If not, I think Adam put some numbers out there for the budget. I don't know if he wanted to talk about those.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, Adam, if you can hear me.
Yeah, so I should probably unmute my self before I start talking. So yeah, I threw that in the folder last minute. I apologize. We're out of sorts here and kind of out of our out of the norm. So that came in last minute. So we can talk about that. And then there's a few other things that I would like to talk about just relative to what we're going through the past 2 or 3 weeks with this whole COVID thing. So we can talk about the budget first, or I can go over a few other things, or we can save the budget conversation for last, however anybody would like to do it.
I have a couple of questions on the budget, so, but I'm good with anything that you would like to discuss first.
Why don't you pick it, Adam? I could go either way. I ask about in both directions, so whichever is fine with me.
All right, so I'll start with I'm going to say they're kind of quick. They're just updates or briefings, but I'm sure they might spark some questions. So I want to add to Cheryl's list of people that we're thanking, and Chartwell's is certainly on that list. They have been providing meals since last Monday, I believe, to families who are in need. We've been doing about 10 to 15 meals per day. So Ken, our food service director, and Kathy, who works in the high school cafeteria, have been doing a great job getting those meals out. There was word, I believe it was yesterday, that the state passed that all districts, whether you were 50% free and reduced or not, would be getting reimbursed for the meals. Up until yesterday, only districts that had free and reduced rates of 50% or more would be eligible for reimbursement for the meals that they are providing to families throughout this time. And again, word came down yesterday that they have lifted that, and all who are serving food to families are eligible for reimbursement through the USDA, which is great news. I mean, we're not doing the volume, so the reimbursement's not going to be great, but to know that we can get reimbursed for it is obviously a good thing. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. I've been talking to Ken every day, just seeing how it's going. He's kind of busy up in East Hampton because, for those of you who don't know, he's also the food service director up there. And they're doing it a little different up there. They do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they hand out meals for 2 days at a time. So their volume is a little bit more than ours is. But nonetheless, thank you to Ken, Chartwell's, and Kathy for what they've done the last couple weeks. Questions on that?
Not so much on the thank you piece, but I do want to make sure that we understand what this shutdown means as far as the school lunch and that budget, and what impact it may have. And then when we restart up, we understand what that looks like too, because I get a little fearful that normally when you start up, you have to buy a lot of stuff again. I just want to make sure we understand that.
Yeah, so we, just to keep this real quick, simple, we went through all the inventory, or as much inventory that we had that we were able to give to families in need. I will talk with Ken tomorrow about, and we're providing simple lunches. This is like non-perishable foods, that are paper bagged and sent home. So where that inventory is coming from, I can talk with Ken. It's been a real kind of crazy runaround, at least for food service, the last 10 days. This was something else like technology that got implemented rather quickly. I want to say it was on a Thursday or Friday, and Monday morning we were serving meals to families. So it's been kind of a crazy time, and we haven't had really any time to take a step back and kind of see what's been going on. But I can certainly sit with him, Mike, if you want to be a part of that. I can have Ken maybe on the next virtual meeting if we want to talk about it. We just haven't gotten to that point yet because we were trying to make sure that we were getting families that needed food the meals that they needed throughout the week.
No, and that's fair. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Take care of what needs to get taken care of first, but let's also not lose sight of what it means or what we're going to have to do to get it started back up again.
Yeah, yep, certainly. There along with food service, there's a few other things that kind of fall into that. And one of those, which is next on my list, is transportation costs. So it's a big topic at the state level. I've been on probably a handful of phone calls already with the state and other finance directors around the state about reimbursing transportation costs when school's not in session. And there's some mixed feelings and mixed feedback, not from the state, but from other business directors around the state as to how we should be, or if we should be paying invoices to transportation that for services that we haven't incurred. So to keep it real basic and real quick, Mass General Law stipulates that we do not pay for any service. This is transportation, sped, anything. We don't pay for any service that hasn't been rendered. That's what we're sticking to right now. However, there are discussions about trying to work with all transportation companies. And in our case, it's First Student, at least for regular day transportation, working out some type of payment with them, because they're also going through a tough time. They're having to lay off drivers. They're having to make some cuts like any other company is. And their argument right now, and take it for what it's worth, is that, if we lose drivers now because they can't pay them, once school starts back up, we're going to have a difficult time putting drivers in the buses. Again, take that argument for what it's worth. There's just some discussions ongoing daily about how or when or if we should reimburse transportation companies for the last few weeks. Again, right now, Mass General Law is on our side. It tells us not to pay for services that haven't been rendered. I was on a call yesterday with the state. They're going to kind of group the districts by cohorts based on who your regular day transportation vendor is. Have a point person for that district or that cluster, and come up with some type of MOA or addendum to the current transportation contract that might reimburse the transportation company for some costs during this time period. That was the first step yesterday, and I will certainly keep everyone up to date as anything as this moves forward. Questions, concerns on that?
Well, I just want to say that I kind of see this from both sides. One, we didn't get the services, so why should we pay for it? But at the same time, I hope that the state comes up with some way to make good on that also, right?
Yeah. So, and again, to be clear, it's going to be guidance from the state. It's not going to be some type of legislative mandate. It's going to be some guidance, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to district by district and how they want to handle this particular problem that we're having right now. So again, I'm on another call. I believe it's tomorrow or Thursday. And I will update everyone either via email or we can figure out some way to get updates out there so everyone knows where we're at with that.
On a separate but related, Will there be a savings in our budget for energy costs, like no lights, no air conditioning in East Meadow or anything for what is looking like a 6.5 week shutdown?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question.
Minimal,
I mean,
probably.
Yeah, minimal. And honestly, right now we still have the custodians are still in there part-time. So there is still some energy costs, or, we're still consuming some energy in the building. That's a good question. I don't know how much that would be. And that'd be one of those things, in the next couple of weeks as things start to, I don't want to say settle down, but for what we've been going through, settle down, certainly something I can take a look at. Another thing similar to transportation costs is SPED, like out of district tuition costs. I'm not sure, Carol, if you're on the call and you want to chime in on this. I'm just going to give some general overview. It's kind of similar to transportation, that should we be reimbursing out of district schools for services that aren't being rendered? Now, there's some arguments in other districts. Carol, again, chime in if you want. I'm not sure this is the case in ours, that there are some out of district companies that are doing things with our students. Now, is it at the level of service that they would get throughout the regular day? I'm not sure. But again, it's one of those topics with transportation on it. Should we be, or how we should be reimbursing out of district tuition throughout this pandemic. So again, Carol would know more. I know she's on those calls. But it does kind of tie into me a little bit, because there is some financial impacts to us moving forward. So that there would be some savings there possibly, and in transportation possibly. Again, Jen, to your point with energy savings, that would be in another couple weeks once stuff settles down for us to start diving into that and looking to see what that number would be.
I'm just thinking of, energy was the first thing that came to mind, but would there be overall supplies, like less paper, less ink in the computers? I mean, I know those are all minuscule things, but I feel like kind of every little penny helps overall. If we're not using them for a 6-week thing, can we?
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I understand like paper and ink.
I'm sorry, I'm dumb.
No. It's a good point. I mean, we wouldn't be able to track that anyway, but what I can say is, I don't want to say luckily, but at the same time, this has been going on for the last 2 weeks. We've also had some mild weather. So we are, at least at the high school, have been able to shut the boilers off. So we would see savings there anyway. I don't know if it would directly relate to what we're going through right now. But yeah, it is something that we will certainly look at in the next few weeks.
And if I can, the directive really from DESE has been to keep everyone employed as much as possible. So our special education providers are doing much like we're doing. So our day placements are doing online work with the students, and our residential placement students are still there. So we're not going to see any savings really for our SPED placements. And like I said, DESE's really been with the governor, really emphasizing trying to keep people employed as much as possible. So even our hourly folks. So savings.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just, not to really change the subject too much, because it's kind of a similar, not so much on the savings, but I do hope that we start to get some understanding of what people expect for the rest of this year and next year, especially from the state. If they have waived the MCAS for this year, what does that mean? Are the students who were supposed to be in 5th grade this year going to pass the MCAS for 6th grade next year with what they may have missed? These are things that I'm really trying to get my hands around and understand. There's a lot of stuff that I think we need a little more, or I'm sorry, a lot more understanding of. And I know it's early, but I think people need to start thinking about it, right?
So we have been thinking about it. As I referenced, the MCAS is a federal requirement that every state has to test kids in grades 3 through 10 and have a competency determination based on that exam. So the federal government has released that requirement. And now DESE and the state have to work together to make that requirement or to alleviate our students from that requirement as well. We expect that that is coming. But again, because that is legislative, it takes a little bit more time to get to us. You had another MCAS, and what was your other one?
Well, I'm just saying that there's a lot of things that have been waived or being decided on now that I think are going to impact, next year and maybe even a year or two later, that I hope people start to figure out and lay the plan.
So our work now this week, now that students and staff are really in the online environment, I think we're doing pretty well. Our work at the DLT is to address exactly those questions. So we've been working with the high school staff in particular around credit versus no credit, pass-fail type of coursework, and what that's going to mean for GPA and when we're going to cut off that, whether or not students are given extra time to complete work. At the elementary level in particular, we're looking at testing with MAP to discover which students may need to make catch-up growth next year because they haven't had the direct instruction on a daily basis, and really which of our kids maintained. And I think, thank goodness we have MAP, because that's a really good indicator for us if we have specific students or groups of students that are going to need additional supports. I'm hoping and advocating that we get some additional funding for extended summer school so that if we can test kids using MAP and we can identify them, then we can intervene over the summer so that we can open next year having a fifth grader be a fifth grader. But if not, we are going to have to go back and address that in the beginning of the year with teachers and curriculum. What is that going to look like? Because they will not have had the direct instruction from teachers for potentially, 3 months. But that's everything we're working on now. So those questions are good ones, and that's the direction that we're working in to answer.
Cheryl, can I jump in here for a minute and tell you, I was on a town hall meeting with the MTA just before this began, and the MTA is pushing to have the standards adjusted and to pass the legislation that MCAS be canceled for this year. They've got a huge media blitz with all the members to send emails to the people that are involved in voting on this and getting it passed.
Excellent. Thanks, Robin.
No problem.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I'm not expecting answers now. I just hope that smart people start to think about some of this stuff, because I think the ripples have yet to be determined as to how far they will reach, right?
Yep. No, they definitely have. That was the directive from Commissioner Riley last week, that we're moving away from extension activities into continuing instruction. And what does that look like? Granby, we have a lot of supports for students. So I think the majority of our students will be okay. But when we compare, as Robin said in the beginning, to districts like Springfield and Chicopee that really aren't doing the instruction, basically are doing nothing at this point, we're going to see some pretty big gaps between communities. And that's something that I think even in Granby, we do need to address, because some of our students, certainly have a lot of support at home, and some of them are going to be missing that. So as I said, I think our assessment system is a way to address that. I really am going to be pushing for summer school support for our kids. And then, like you said, either an adjustment to the standards in the fall or an adjustment to how we cluster students so that they can receive intervention instruction right out of the gate, and really make up that time that they've lost.
And I thank you for that. I just, again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm going to be asking these things because I think there's going to be a lot of impact yet to discover.
Agreed.
All right, so I just have a couple more things before we get into the budget. This one should be real quick. We are tracking expenses that we have incurred due to what we've been going through the last 2 weeks, and there is the state or the federal government will be reimbursing districts for costs that they have incurred. So I just want to keep everyone up to date on that. We are tracking those. And at some point there will be reimbursement. When, how, that's not really determined yet, but we will see some type of reimbursement for that in the future. So I will keep everyone up to date on that as well. One other thing, Mike, I'm just going to update everyone on the circulating pumps. I don't know if you want to jump in or not, but I know we had talked, I don't even know at this point, a few meetings ago about how one of our circulating pumps in the high school had failed, and we're working on just one right now. We had gone to the finance committee to see if it was something they would transfer out of free cash to help us out with the cost, because replacing both of them would be about $30,000 or so. Jay Joyce actually got the green community grant people involved, and they were on site with an engineer last week. I want to say it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. They came, took a look at both of our pumps in the high school, and they are eligible to be funded by the grant. So Jay in the Green Community Grant will incur that cost. I'm not sure where we are at with that. I don't know if that's an expense that will be this current fiscal year or sometime over the summer, July, August. But I know it's now out of our hands, and the Green Community Grant will be replacing. I'm not sure if it's both of them, at least the one that has failed, and possibly the second one. I can get more information, give everyone an update once I have that.
Yeah, please do, because I was not sure. I mean, I assumed it was for both of them, but now that you bring it up, I don't think I asked that specifically either. And I do remember my discussion with Jay was this was going to be, whatever was going to be installed was going to be done before the heating cycle started.
Yes, correct. I agree. I got the same information from him that it was it would be before the next heating cycle. So that could be anywhere from, I would say, the late spring into late fall of next year. But I will follow up to see if both pumps will be replaced and not just the one that has failed. And anything else before we get into the year-to-date FY20 budget numbers?
Just going back to a question on the Finance Committee request, who did that go to?
So it's going to myself, Mike, and Cheryl. I believe the three of us were on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just the three of us that were on there.
Could you forward that to us or something, or at least I'd like to see it?
Sure, Mike. Would you like to forward that to the rest of the committee?
Yeah, I can do that.
And I would ask when those kind of things come in, I think they should be sent to all of us. So if I run into people, I know something, they don't ask me, and I look like I don't know what they're talking about. Not that I run to many people these days, but just request to forward that along to us. Wherever it was.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I'll send that out. I don't remember seeing them in the past, so I didn't think to shoot them out. But at the same time, I've got nothing that I'm trying to keep to myself. I think most of the stuff has been answered, with the exception of 2 items. And I want to say most of them were not really well. There was a couple that were all kind of interlinked, but a lot of it wasn't really, really related to to our number specifically.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now on to the budget. Hopefully, and again, I apologize for the last minute of putting it in the folder, but I know, Emery, you at least had a question or a few questions on it, and I'm not sure anybody else, but obviously you guys can ask away at this point.
Just my standard, where are we at this point? I see where we're at now, but are we usually at the 60% mark?
Yeah, so and again, and this is probably going back a couple months now about kind of going over what we wanted this to look like. There was some dialogue back and forth, and I feel like we kind of got into the whole sixth grade transition discussion and then into the current situation that we are in now. So again, I can make this look like however we want it to. Compared to last year, we are right on track as to where we are last year. I know the target says 75%. That's just a broken down 1/12 percentage that I put in there. A lot of that is due to, you'll see in the teaching instruction line, the balance of $2.8 million. That's salaries. So what happens with salaries, they get, as of June 30th, then the rest will get encumbered for July and August, because our teachers, most staff are paid 26 times a year, so throughout the whole year. So that number looks a little large. It's because of that 2.8, but that 2.8 will be spent because a majority of that is teacher and staff salaries.
So it seems to me that we may want to adjust that target for future purposes, because as you said, if the teacher salaries are spread across the year, and that being the largest share of our budget, I don't know if we ever get to 75% then.
Yeah, so in the past, so again, it kind of goes back to this kind of going on the back burner. In the past, I took salaries out of this equation. The last conversation that we had, we kind of wanted to see it in total. So now salaries are put back into that equation. So again, I can adjust the target and keep all the information in there, or take out salaries. We can kind of look at that separately and just keep it to just expenses at this point of the year.
So Adam, does the administration line item include our administrative expenses?
Yes, salaries and stuff. Correct. Yes. Yep.
So how would that be at 87% if we are paying, I'm assuming, everybody in the same cycle, right? Just 26 times a year. So
now it's,
is that the balance of $100,000? Is that realistic?
So let me just look at the backup. So just give me a second as I go through all this.
While he's doing that, I just want to say I do like having all of this information here, but I do think we need to figure out how to make that a more realistic target.
Well, I don't know. Isn't that because administrators should only be paid up through June 30th, right? Then they start a new contract July 1st. Wouldn't that be the rationale?
Yeah. So again, for administration, for anybody that's not, I want to make sure I'm saying this accurately. Anybody that's not a teacher, which a majority of our staff are, their salary is spread out throughout the whole year, but we take the 2019-20 salary as of June 30th. We encumber all of that salary. So as of right now, again, it looks like that number is really big. Once June 30th hits, for at least instruction, that number will be encumbered, and then it goes to FY21 books for it to then be reduced. I don't want to get into the details of that, but for everybody else, yes, as of June 30th, that balance of what we're paying them should be zero. Correct.
Is that because the teachers don't start until September, and that's why it has a crossover?
Yes. Yep. And there's technically, again, I want to say, Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say we mandate that all of our teachers are 26 pay cycles, correct? I can get that answer, but yes.
I can answer that now.
Yeah.
Always have.
I don't either.
They've always had.
So I can.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if it's
thought
a
so, but
mandate or not.
I thought it was in the contract, but I could be wrong. But again, so the bigger thing, yes, the administration is for salaries. That will be hopefully, assuming zero when we get to June 30th, Emery, to answer your question for administrative staff.
Thank you.
I guess the bigger thing is, again, do we want to include salaries in this projection or separate it and have a separate conversation about salaries?
The only reason I can imagine salaries would be interesting to see if there is any change to the number of folks that we are paying, and therefore it has an impact on how much money we have left in our salary line item, right?
Yep.
So if we add new administrative team members, if we add new teachers, or we lose some of those folks during the year, then the numbers would fluctuate, and it may be a good conversation to have. I think I understand what you're saying. Since these are already decided based on the numbers that we know for the upcoming year, more or less, they're going to be spent by the end of the cycle. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, okay. Correct. Yep. And that's why I kind of kept salaries out of it in the past, only because in my head, I've assumed that all of those salaries will be spent come the end of the year.
Okay. All right. And the overall question, actually, I assume that you answered a good chunk of that when you were explaining some of the impact from this school closure and the pandemic. But some of the line items being low, even the 59% overall itself, is it effective? For instance, the transportation line, is it looking low right now because we are closed, or we did not pay some of the transportation costs that we were expecting to? Or is this too soon to really show any impact from that closure?
I would say it's not too soon, only because there's really, since we're paying our staff, which we would have paid them no matter what, right? There's not going to be any savings there. The only real direct savings at this point would be in transportation. And yeah, so usually by this point, I would have paid the March invoice, which is about $47,000. I've only paid about $4,000 or $5,000 of that. So there, right there is about $35,000 of savings that, depending on how this goes, we might pay them a portion of that, depending on some guidance from the state, or there might be that amount of savings for the month of March for transportation.
Yeah, and if you're saying 40,000, that would be about 5% more right there. So it's not a dramatic.
Right.
Dramatic
and
impact.
remember, so transportation is a separate town article. So
right, exactly.
Any savings that we see in that, we'd have to request that from Chris. And I don't know at this point, with everything else that's going on and town meetings being pushed back and all that, if we can recoup that savings, because it would have to go to, I believe it has to go to a vote. So I'm not sure where we are at with that timeline. So yes, a majority of the savings that we're going to see for the next month and a half would be transportation related.
Okay. Thank you, Adam.
Adam, where are the, I don't know what the cost savings would be, but where do you put the, where do you pay the substitutes from? Substitute that for other services?
No, so the substitutes would be in that instructional line that you say.
There'll obviously be some savings there with 6+ weeks of no substitutes.
Correct. Yep.
Correct.
And again, so even up until this point, we've had some savings in other places. Again, over the next month and a half, those savings are probably going to increase a little bit because of the transportation and kind of just waiting on the guidance from the state. But we have some savings, before all of this kind of got in motion.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And my hope was to get the transfers in front of you guys, at least for expenses, not salaries, at least for expenses, to move some money around for the end of the year. Obviously, that's going to get pushed back because we have a little more important things to do. But I do hope by the next meeting, is that next week or is it 2 weeks from now, our next meeting?
I think it's scheduled for next week.
It's scheduled for next week. So I will try my hardest for next week to try to get those transfers in front of you guys so we can approve them and then move the money around as we'll need it from now through June 30th.
And Adam, for what it's
line there of 23,000, how are you going to get through that in the rest of the next few weeks? Why is that so low?
What's that? Can you just, I didn't hear the first part. Can you just repeat that, please?
Operations, where it's, I don't know what's in that account, but you only got 23,000 left there presently.
Yeah. So again, that maintenance account, a lot of it, the money is tied up in encumbered in oil. So now we have some savings in oil because I believe if we haven't already, we're going to fill our tanks, which will now get us through probably, hopefully November of next school year. So there's the savings that you see in that balance line. And then there's also some additional savings when we free up some of the encumbered money. So again, like last year at this point, the surplus or deficit is going to be a moving target for the next, I would say, probably month or so. And again, what we're going through now is not going to help that situation. So yeah, for maintenance, we are all set on spending, quote unquote, for the rest of the year. So I would take that money as an example, that 23,000, transfer it with your approval, put it to somewhere where we would need that money for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So one item, again, I don't want to be, make this bigger than I have to, but you just brought up the oil. Are we able to take advantage of the extreme drop in that price now? Or are we locked into certain rates?
Yeah, so we're locked in until December 30th, I think, of 2020, but I could check. But we already pay for oil. It's $1.91 a gallon. We've been locked in at for a couple of years. So we already, because we buy in such large amounts, we have a pretty low price as it is. That's a good question. I don't know how much more we could save based on what the price of oil and gas is now, but I could certainly reach out to them and see.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that is we got a good deal earlier in the year when prices were higher. So I mean, it's kind of a wash.
So yeah, so that's the other thing. So we pay $1.91 a gallon. So when it was $2-3 a gallon, we're not paying that price. So it certainly evens out in a time like this.
The other thing, Adam, isn't this the year for the bus contract is up? Has that all been delayed?
So that's currently out to bid right now. Again, those are some other, there's some legislative implications on the timeline for when that bid came back, how long it's got to be out there, when it can be open. That's kind of out there right now on, are they going to change it? Do we honor bids? What do we do? And it's on that list of things that I don't want to say they don't know at this point, but they don't know how it's going to be handled at this point.
Weren't they due around April 1st or so?
So they were due on April 1st.
Which is
I have an email here. Yep, I have an email here. I'm not going to do it now, Jim, just for the sake of time while we're here, but I will find it and email the committee. I know there was some questions asked, and there were some recent communications between Andy and a couple of the vendors. So I will forward that information to the school committee.
Okay.
Any other questions on budget, at least for FY 20, or anything else finance related, facilities related?
Nope.
All right, that was the end of the agenda. I don't know if anybody, I guess at this point, if anybody has any objections to, I think a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that if no one else.
All right, I don't know if we should do, I just lost everybody. But I don't know if we should go, I think on a roll call, I think it's called.
Well, I think we see all of the commissioners. If we raise our hands, that should be our commission. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against? All right, so.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.